Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of the season 5 finale of The Handmaid's Tale. Before I jump into this review, I just want to mention this Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I will be doing a live stream talking about the whole season, and that's where you guys can sound off. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll react to what you guys are saying. We had a lot of fun last year doing it, so I hope you can join and make it. If not, you can watch the replay as well. And please make sure to subscribe to my channel before I jump into this review because it helps me in so many ways. If everybody subscribed, I'd be able to quit my day job and do this full time. So it really means so much if you could just do that. Please, please, please. But anyway, jumping into the finale, I'm going to break up my review into 3 parts. We'll start with everything going on with June, then everything going on with Nick, and then finish off with everything with Janine. So this episode was directed by Elisabeth Moss and written by showrunner Bruce Miller. Now you see with everything going on with June, the way Elisabeth Moss filmed this was a lot like a horror film, and we know she's been in her share of horror films in The Invisible Man and Us. There's a lot of stuff she's doing with the camera work that's very similar to how horror films would shoot a lot of their scenes, and I think she went with that approach because of the paranoia June is feeling since that assassination attempt, to the point where she even buys a bulletproof vest for this memorial service she was supposed to attend. And again, we get this shot we see a lot in the show where she's sitting on the windowsill and the light is on her, just reminding you of her handmaid days, and that she always still feels trapped, and that she can never escape that life of being a handmaid. In a sense, it's always with her. So Mark does explain to Luke and June that this gunman that shot her was this 56-year-old man, and if his ties to Gilead, they'll find out. So they haven't found out officially yet. So that kind of what slows it from just breaking out to all-out war here. But we'll see now when June goes out into the street, says goodbye to Mark. There is this little 360 point of view shot Elisabeth Moss does here, and it ends showing this van playing Kokomo and actually runs over her and then runs her arm over. And I thought at first when it ran her arm over that this was a dream sequence. I mean, for sure that's what was happening. No, but it really happened. And that's when you see a very horror-esque shot where it's a close-up of her on the ground and you just see half of her face in terror of what's happened to her. You also see there's a Gilead symbol on this truck confirming it is someone who believes in that, and Luke ends up fighting the guy. But right away, when June is brought to the hospital, immediately Luke is taken into questioning for what's happened. Now, we'll see, though, again, when June now is on the windowsill, has come out of the hospital, she has a sling on, and she's talking to Luke. But an important thing about this scene is Luke says, I am not going to let anyone hurt you, I promise. And this is setting up his decision by the end of this episode to sacrifice himself for June. And again, you see with the directing, when June goes to sleep, she's having thoughts of that car attack and then wakes up in the middle of the night. That's where you see a lot of horror movie shots where you see her peeking through the doorway. You even see a shadow silhouette of June walking down the steps. Now, this is where she ends up seeing Rita, who is at the house talking to Luke and Moira, and she lets him know that Mr. Thorpe is the man from the truck and that he is dead. But the problem with this is that basically it can be a warrant out for Luke's arrest now. And that's when June's like, we have to run. And this is where Luke's like, we're just going to forget about Hannah now. And she's like, we cannot help her if we're dead. So I'm so about this line and this, because I feel like we've seen this 100 times where she's all in on anything at all costs to save Hannah. But then they'll write that line like, well, we can't save her if we're dead, or we can't do anything if we're caught. So then they reverse it. So it's always this like back and forth. And now that we know where it ends up, it can get a little silly. And that also leads to where she's saying this line to Luke, like, Luke, this country is changing. America wasn't Gilead until it was, and then it was too late. So they really forced in this total flip of Canada becoming as bad as America got in the belief of Gilead. It's just completely flipped this season, and it's so contrived to me still and how they're forcing it in, but I'm happy that direction because I just want to get out of this house. When I was watching this episode, I was like, all right, I'm done with these scenes with Luke and Moira and Rita and June just talking in this house and getting out of Canada. It's the best way to go. It's still, to me, wasn't the best decision to even have June land in Canada. It's really been like a sluggish pace, all the scenes in Canada. So I'm happy they're branching out of that, and a lot of this reworking of the script and story and making Canada now kind of vile is to just get our characters out of there. So I don't think it's totally earned, but I like the choice. But this is where they're going to run to the airport, but Mark's like, you'll get caught there. So he's like, well, American refugees, they're all leaving because Canada doesn't want them anymore. we're putting them on trains to go west. Again, it feels a little silly, all this, because we're not seeing enough of the world and what's actually happening in the world. That's what's frustrating about this. It's always had a struggle with world building in the show. But we'll see as I talk about the Nick stuff. I haven't brought up the hospital scene yet, but June tells Mark at the train station, get message to Nick that Nicole and I are okay. But Mark keeps a secret that Nick asked him to not tell June that Nick actually visited her in the hospital. But you see, Luke tells her to just go with Nicole on the train. If I'm with you, you guys are going to get screwed. And this is where June's like, I don't want to do this alone anymore. Then she realizes he wasn't ever going to get on the train anyway. And she says, Luke, come find me. I love you. So knowing the last season's the next, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Luke. But I think we're probably not going to get much of him next season. And maybe something towards the end that's resolved with him, whether he's in jail or just trying to reunite with June. Maybe it's the last time they've ever seen each other in this scene. Who knows? Is anyone that upset about possibly having less Luke time? I'm not. But I did think this scene was effective. I liked it. So the big twist here is that on the train, she hears another baby. It's Serena. And this is crazy. And Serena's like, you got a diaper. Now Billie Eilish plays Bury a Friend. And, you know, the lyrics, why don't you run for me? It's similarities to A Monster Under the Bed. That song is about. So just similarities to this relationship that June and Serena have. And Serena we know as the monster in the bed in June's life, and kind of seeing how they'll work together in this setup for Handmaids in Hawaii. So interesting. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm trusting Bruce Miller they have a good plan for this, or they wouldn't do it. Or hopefully this isn't just to be able to film in Hawaii. Let us know in the comments, Bruce. But this is the thing that's hurt this show. And I mentioned in my last review, someone made a comment that was great, where it was just like, what feels weird about this show this season is it really doesn't full circle connect all the arcs of these characters we've grown attached to, like a Moira, like a Rita. They've really just been put to the side, and this didn't set up them at all to even have really much of a use in the final season. So it got so centered in on Luke and June's relationship, but I think in centering on certain people, which I understand because it helps to center in on certain characters and shows, but it just really forgot about other characters and just dropped their stories completely. And I think you wish in a sense that it was these women working together at the end of this story. It's just not going that direction. It's going the direction with Serena and June, which is cool too. I'm not against that, but it does kind of suck that we suffered losing other character stories. So what we see now with everything with Nick, right? Nick confronts Lawrence about the shooting, and she's like, hey man, she is not a target. And he can see too that Lawrence is like talking himself around it now and justifying it. And he's like, she had a choice. But that's when Nick's like, she's fighting for her daughter. And he said, well, this is what happens in a fight. Everybody gets bloody. So this episode, now you're really starting to see that dark twist of Lawrence coming back again. He's just becoming very unlikable. And this is going to force this conflict we're definitely seeing leaning into the final season between Nick and Lawrence. It's going to be very important how different they react to someone like Mackenzie, and how they're going to still try to protect June, or if not at all, it's seeming like with Lawrence now. So we're going to see that divide between those two men. And we see Nick goes to see June in this hospital bed and kissed her on the forehead, but doesn't want her to know he's there. And now he finally takes Mark on his offer to work with him. And he says, you just keep her safe. I need to know you will if I'm going to do this deal. And Mark just keeps saying, I'll do everything I can, but not totally guaranteeing it. And he brings up a good point where he's like, why didn't you run away with her when you were a driver? And he says, she has people who care for her. She doesn't need me. I'm nothing. And Mark says, no, you're not to her. So it's an interesting conversation to be had, and it's interesting looking into the mind of Nick there, that he has this insecurity of worth in his, just how he is as a person, and maybe that leads to him never fully even thinking him worthy to someone as honorable as a June. So it's interesting, but a lot of even the Nick stuff feels a little wonky, let's say, this season too, because a minute ago he's telling June he'll do anything to protect his family, meaning Rose, and now something happens to June and it completely flips, and now he's taking the offer. So again, there's a lot of writing like this season that just flips so fast. But we'll see Nick goes to the reception here and punches Lawrence in front of Mackenzie, aka Ozark, which is important. And he's like, you could have killed her. And this is where the Weasley Lawrence is like, it wasn't me, it wasn't my decision. So this is important that it's all in front of Mackenzie and Ozark, because he's seeing that. And then he doesn't know how much he can even trust a Lawrence, but this totally is going to screw Nick in front of all these commanders, that he's that defensive of a June Osborne. That's why we'll see he's in Gilead jail. And Rose visits, says he's a liar when he says, I love you. And she says, you just say that because you want to feel like you're a good man. but a good man wouldn't leave his pregnant wife every time his girlfriend calls. Oh, snap. That's the diss of this season right there. Got him. And she's like, you will never let go of her. And he's like, I tried, but I can't. Which is true. And that he tried and that he can't let go of June. And then she just dumps him. So Nick is just in this weird spot where he cares about this family. He's about to have another baby with this woman, Rose. And he's still worried about June, and now he just is in a horrible position he's put himself in, showing that he was angry about what happened to June in front of Mackenzie. Yeah, I don't know what Nick's going to do here. It is interesting, though, to see what's going to happen with him in the next season. It kind of gives more conflict to a situation instead of just being this comfortable commander in power who doesn't really do much of anything and always has cold feet. This is a little more interesting to finally kind of see him put his neck on the line. So I do like that direction for him for next season. Now let's go to everything with Janine. Now, Janine, you know, is my favorite character if you've watched my reviews. I love Maddie Brewer as an actress, and this story of Janine with Lydia and Esther, this has still been my favorite story in the show currently. Again, it feels like old Handmaid's Tale, maybe because we're in Gilead, but there's just a great writing going on as well, and I care more about what's happening. But I do have some issues with it in the finale, which I'm going to get to right now. But Janine sings It's the Hard Knock Life from Annie, this perfect song for the situation she's in. Lydia actually smirks at this song, but warns, hey, let's sing a more appropriate hymn. And this is setting up what's going to happen in this episode with Lydia and Janine, that Lydia's like trying to keep Janine toned down. She's more on Janine's side, has Janine's back right now, but she's like chill, because there's other aunts there, and this isn't going to help Janine at all because other aunts are noticing this. And then they notice the charity that Lydia is giving Janine. She's like, look, Lydia, Janine has to be posted or she's going to end up somewhere else. So this is where Lydia is like hustling now. Has this idea, which is a smart idea, but not really also because Janine is a firecracker and she wants to post Janine here with Naomi and Lawrence. And Naomi's like, no way at first, because she's like, how is this going to look? I'm going to look like a fool taking in this specific handmaid and Janine. But Lydia's like, no, you will look like a model of forgiveness and grace. And Gilead needs new woman at the helm, strong and faithful. But see, this is the problem, is that is not who Naomi is, and that will show as this episode goes on. And when Lydia pitches this to Janine, this is not really what Janine wants to hear. She does not want to be posted. This is a step backwards. But see, Lydia's smart because she knows the pull for Janine is that her sweet Angela, her daughter, is what she'd be getting in the situation. She's like, how would you like to see sweet Angela again? And she says, well, you can if all goes well with Miss Putnam. And she's like, show her proper respect and she will consider to allow you to be posted in her house. So it's not a full agreement yet for her to even be posted. And you see the heartbreak in Lydia's eyes saying to her, like, you can't stay here indefinitely, which Lydia wishes she could, knows that's not possible. She's like, but look, you're going to have a chance to see Angela and you've come so far. And also kind of saying, like, don't mess this up, Janine. But for Janine, this is not progress. But you see this twist that happens here when Naomi talks to Janine, that Angela is with her grandparents the entire summer, and this is going to be a test phase. So this is where Lydia gets really worried, and props to Ann Dowd. Her facial expressions during this whole scene were perfect. And this is where Naomi's just coming in hard. So she's like, well, this will give you a chance to prove yourself. And remember, she is my daughter. To say anything else, you can lose your tongue. It's like, oh, God, Naomi being Naomi. And you see Lydia's like making sure, like, oh, my God, this is going to blow up in my face. But she says, you're going to be a good girl, aren't you, Janine? And this is where Janine's like, yes. But when Lydia leaves, Janine takes off that bonnet. And I do believe Janine was going to go through with this and try it out. But two things. The first thing that was the catalyst to change everything here was her finding out that June is hurt. It like woke her into like full on, like, again, what's really at stake here, the rebellion mode, how far she's already come, especially with June. And I love how it cuts to the family portrait scene where she's still thinking about what's happening to June here. But the real moment that fully was like, screw this, is when Naomi says to her, it will be nice to have a friendly face in the house of Joseph. Cue the Arthur fist clench meme for Janine. And she snaps. It was right when she called her off Joseph. And she's like, that's not my name. We're not friends. You are one of the worst people I've ever known. Maddie Brewer is just the best at scenes like this. I don't even think Janine at this point cares at the repercussions of doing this. And this is where Aunt Lydia's heartbroken. She's like, you had the most wonderful opportunity and you threw it away. And she's like, but you can fix this, beg for mercy, forgiveness. But that's where Janine's like, no, I'm not doing that. And this is where the eyes are here for Janine. And this is what's interesting because Lydia says, I will call Commander Lawrence. And they say he gave the order. Again, how I was saying how Lawrence just gets more hateable as this episode goes on. This is big. If that's the truth, which I think it is, wow, he's fully gone down the dark path now. And what's crazy is Lydia is like so heartbroken by them taking Janine and knowing what's going to happen to her, that she's going to this truck where they usually obviously go to hang people, and that she gets pushed down by one of the eyes here, Lydia. So I've always said too that what happens here is if Janine was to die, this in this specific situation, something like this, it is the perfect catalyst for Lydia to have a full redemption arc. It has to be something that's tragic to make her completely change and for us to buy it. Now, I like all this, and I'm very frustrated at the timing of it, though, if I look at it as a season whole, because this will be the third time in 2 seasons they have left us wondering if Janine's going to survive. And I feel like you have a couple cliffhangers set up in this finale with June and Serena going to Hawaii. And then you have the cliffhanger of what's going to happen with Luke. Actually, another cliffhanger, too, with what's going to happen with Nick, which is, I think, all passable as, okay, satisfying enough and good to leave something for us to look forward to the next final season. But you had to have one, and I thought it was this one here, of like, you can't just leave it now again, especially the end of a season, not the end of an episode, of, wait, what's going to happen with Janine? How do we not see this? This is where I was like, wait, so does this mean, again, we're just going to be teased and she's not going to be killed? Which I think it is, because they didn't show it. If they were going to kill her, why not just show it here to have that big flip for Aunt Lydia? That would be a very interesting route to take and a tragic big moment for the finale. So it's very frustrating. It's really hard to judge this episode because as an episode on its own right, just watching it, I think it was very good. I'm going to give it an 8.6. But as a season finale, it's very frustrating for that because we didn't get enough, to me, closure or answers. Even though you got to set up the final season, you still got to make it feel like we were satisfied journey for this one season. And then if you look back at this whole season as a whole, I do not think we got that. And I think that could have been the moment here if we saw Janine die at this moment and really change Lydia completely. That would have been crazy and really hit. I don't think anything really hit here. I don't think it's enough for Luke letting June go on a train be that big emotional moment to hit. So it's also interesting too, we didn't get any more time with Esther because it's like, is Esther just still screaming in this hospital bed somewhere? I was surprised we didn't see more of her as my voice cracks. But, you know, I still think it was good, but it didn't leave me with like, okay, this season as a whole, I'm very satisfied. You know, I felt like this was a very set up finale, but this Janine thing they keep doing, it's like, I don't know how they keep doing this with the teasing if she's going to die or not. And I can't believe they're doing it now with the weight of a whole waiting for a new season to come out. So frustrating. But I took all my scores through the whole season, averaged them out with 10 episodes, and it came to an 8.4. And you might think that actually sounds pretty high for a lot of stuff I haven't liked about this season, but that's just for how I've looked at each episode on its own, and that's what it averages out. So on average score, it's right kind of there with season 3 on the bottom tier of the seasons of the show. But as a passion feeling, without looking at it as like critiquing it and reviewing it for quality, feeling passion about the show itself just completely dropped down for me this season. And did it make me excited this finale for the final season? I mean, not really. I feel like I'm not like someone who's like, wow, I can't wait to see Serena and June in Hawaii together. Like that's that sounds like silly to me, but I hope it proves me wrong. I'm more excited again for the Testaments at this point. I just hope that this final season expands a little more and hopefully they can rework some stuff to make Moira and Rita interesting again and get screen time again. And maybe we'll see Emily again. Maybe Alexis Bledel will come back. Who knows? But that would be awesome. I think we can definitely use her character. That could only help. And I'm just frustrated that we're not getting this Janine answer right now. I think that's the biggest swing and miss of this finale. I think it could have really hit out of the park if they showed something here. But overall, solid episode, given 8.6. Again, make sure to check out my live stream. We can talk all about this on Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. So you'll see that link to the end of this episode, and I'll eventually put in the comments. Just make sure you hit the reminder button on it. You'll see a little post there already up for that. And make sure to subscribe. You can become a member today. It'll help me in so many ways. You can just give a tip if you want. I appreciate all those things. And please, I feel like everyone disappears when the show ends, and I love talking to you guys in the comments and having you guys watch shows with me. So let me know what shows you watch, what you guys want me to cover. I don't know where the Handmaid's fans go after the Handmaid's. I feel like they hibernate. So please let me know what you guys watch after that. I know you guys watch more TV, so let me know. And please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok for more of me. I appreciate all one of you guys. I hope I did this season justice for you guys and came out as honest as possible at the end of the day too, because that's what I value the most in my reviews. Praise be. I'll see you next time.